Awesome. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Truth Talk podcast. And today I'm joined by Kamini. Hi, Kamini.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Kamini Cruz, and I am the founder of The Culture Coach and primary HR consultant at the Culture Coach. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. And thank you so much for having me.
All right, awesome. So, Kamini is an HR expert. So, today we're going to be talking about all things HR, i.e., all things people, right? How are people being treated in companies? How can companies improve their people? And the whole shebang. So before we start, please just share your journey with us, how you started, where you went to school, and how you got to where you are now.
Introduction to Kamini. Yeah, I'm the founder of The Culture Coach and primary HR consultant. And I'm really excited to be here today. So thank you so much for having me on this awesome Truth Talk show. A bit about me, a bit about my background. I grew up in a small town in KZN called Tongat. A shout out to all my Tongatians out there. And I was this young girl with very big dreams from a young age. So as soon as I finished matric, we didn't have much money for me to attend university, but that was fine with me. I wanted to move out to a big city and start my life, which is exactly what I did. I moved to Johannesburg, to the big city of Mzansi. Yeah, fresh out of school, just somehow managed to land myself a receptionist job and really built my career up from there. So out of school, got a reception job and worked my way from sales and then into HR. And then I had an opportunity to co-found a recruitment company, which really, I would say, took my HR career to the next level and gave me insight, not just from a recruitment perspective, but a people perspective, business owners and employees. And here we are with my second company now. After starting the business, I had an opportunity to join some very cool tech startups, which were wild journeys, but really exciting. And today I am now, I've started the Culture Coach, and my goal is really to help businesses, help founders and CEOs and leaders understand how to help their people. And I want to help employees feel recognized, valued, and feel like they have a purpose.
So, which were some of the tech companies that you worked at, and what were some of the lessons that you learned at these tech startups?
Awesome. So the two tech startups that I joined, one was Yoko, absolutely great company, and the other climate tech startup was Home Energy. And I think the lessons that I learned there was securing and anchoring your culture from the onset is foundational to business success. I think Yoko did, they already had a very established culture and they centered it around their purpose and their mission, which was to help small businesses to help bank the unbankable, or bring finance solutions to where there weren't finance solutions or people weren't looking at it. And so that was a really good mission to get behind, and being part of that team and feeling like we're part of a mission and part of a purpose, really helped anchor the culture. But it also showed that you can have a culture of a company, but you can also have a slightly different culture in a team. And you can have a great culture as a company, but if the team culture is different or not necessarily aligned, it still has an impact on employees. And with the in-home energy, home was sort of pioneering tech platform in a climate space where there wasn't really a tech platform ever designed or developed. So, creating a platform where solar installers and residential homeowners could come onto one platform and almost act like an Uber of how you want to purchase solar solutions, and making it as easy as booking an Uber, the same concept. That was a startup where there wasn't a blueprint for us to follow. We were sort of pioneering something, I'd say, on a global scale. But and that made it really exciting, but very challenging as well.
Interesting. And then what led you to say, okay, I love these startups, but now I want to be a founder? What was the driving force behind you starting your own business?
Ah, good question. Good question. So, a little bit of vulnerability or honest moment here. Joining the startups, if you don't know, startups can be they're not structured. They're not always very structured, and I was unfortunately retrenched from both startups as it would go. But I think I don't hold any animosity in any way. I think that those retrenchments really were blessings in disguise, and it was an amazing growth both at Yoko and at Home Energy, and I really got to see both sides of the coin. I got to be an employee going through a tough time, but I also got to see business owners and the CEOs going through a tough time, and the struggle between not knowing how to support your workforce, and then the employees not feeling valued or feeling recognized. And I think it's my mission or my dream of and why I wanted to start the Culture Coach is there's a lot of opportunity to help our leaders, help our CEOs, help our founders know what to do in certain situations, help them grow and invest in their people, because they're not always sure how to. They're focused on bringing in the money. They're focused on growing the company to pay salaries most of the time as well.
Yeah.
But they don't always have that knowledge of, okay, how do my people need support practically? What's actually going to move the needle with them? And from the employee side, they're just seeing it as, shit hitting the fan, to put it lightly, or my company doesn't love me, or I'm not feeling valued, and therefore I'm out, or I'm going to bash them now. And I think that starting the Culture Coach, I want to help business owners and founders know what to do and how to set the right foundation. And I want employees to feel valued. Everyone has worth. Everyone has a purpose. And I want to help unlock that. So that's the mission of the Culture Coach.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So what types of companies do you work with? Who's your ideal customer?
That is a great question. I want to say all businesses, because all businesses go through trials and tribulations. But I think where I'm going to deliver the most value right now is within your SMEs and your startups, in growing businesses, where you sort of have a team together, you're taking off a little bit, or you want to add a few more people to the team, and your business is growing. Whether it's growing at a slow pace or hyper growth, that is a great time to bring in my kind of services, especially on the fractional side. You're going to hear a lot about, or global trend is fractional services, which is people coming in not on a full-time basis. They're coming in with senior expertise to help companies with the skills that they need or that they lack. So I think where I play very well is coming in for a short period, analyzing your company, analyzing your culture, analyzing your people, and just helping you take the load of focusing on your people a little bit, giving it to me so that you can, as a leader, focus on a little bit more, and then giving your people and your employees someone that they can trust as well, that's partnered with their business leaders or with their company execs to help bring the best environment for employees. So yeah, back to the question, I'd say your growing businesses, your startups, and your SMEs is a sweet spot for me.
Okay, and just going back a little bit, you mentioned you did your MBA at UCT,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
that's correct.
How was it? How did
Yeah,
how did
yeah.
UCT prepare you for your career? How was it?
My MBA journey is not your traditional MBA journey. So, like I had mentioned, I'll just give you a short backstory as to how I got into my MBA as well and why it was such a big deal for me. So, as I'd mentioned, didn't get a chance to go to university. Straight out of matric, moved to Joburg, started out my career, and so here I was running my company meeting with executives and meeting with founders and CEOs, but I felt very, I'd say I had major feeling of undervalued because I felt I don't have any tertiary education. I don't have a bachelor's of anything. I've just got a matric and now I'm running my business for 5 years. And what I love about UCT in particular was they were a university that said, you know what, Kamini, you don't have the minimum qualification to get in was an undergraduate degree. And they said to me, put together a portfolio of all your work experience and let's see if we can equate that to an undergraduate degree, if you could call it. So it's called the RPL, Recognition of Prior Learning Process. And they gave me a chance. They gave me the opportunity. I put together my portfolio. It was not easy getting into UCT. It was not easy getting into that MBA, but I did it and I got in. And then I got into the MBA, and then I'm surrounded by people that have master's degrees and doctorates sitting, and I'm sitting amongst them, and I felt like the biggest imposter. And I think for me, more than what I learned on the MBA, which was fantastic. I mean, you're going to get the absolute A to Z of business in that MBA. But more than anything, what I learned was the confidence that the MBA gave me, the confidence in myself to believe that I can do it, even though I feel underqualified. I felt supported by the university, and my MBA, it represents to me that if I can do what I put my mind to. So even though I didn't necessarily come from the traditional background that most people have when doing an MBA, I still got in there. I still worked my ass off. I finished, pretty top of my class, and yeah, I'm proud of that. And thank you, UCT, for giving me that opportunity, but also creating such a fantastic program. And I've made some lifelong friends because of it.
Wow, what a great promo for UCT. If they're watching this, they must be having a great time right now. And your MBA
Absolutely,
was
Kitty.
focused your MBA was focused on gamification and employee engagement. Could you please just summarize what that
Yeah.
is for those that don't know?
Sure. So gamification is looking at how you can take a process or take tasks or take an environment and add a gaming element to it. And it doesn't have to look like an actual gaming platform, like a Super Mario game, but it's looking at things like giving point systems or kudos or little rewards for completing tasks, encouraging the team or encouraging friendly competition, so that employees feel like they're part of something a little bigger and it's a bit more fun. So gamifying something just means bringing an element of a game to a process to enhance how it's being done and to bring a fun element to it. Okay, uh, so that's just an explanation on gamification. In a nutshell, my thesis looked at, does gamification move the needle or increase employee engagement? And the fascinating thing is that you can have the best gamified systems, but if the culture isn't right, then employee engagement will remain where it is. So gamification is great, but in conjunction with a supportive culture.
Has there ever been a time where gamification has gone wrong?
Oh, absolutely. So during this one gamification project I was working on, we set up a points-based recognition system, thinking it was going to boost engagement, create some camaraderie between the team members, maybe some friendly competition. Instead, it led to some very competitive employees finding some very interesting and questionable ways of getting those points. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was a bit of a mess. And I think the lesson that I took out of that is that gamification is great, but it has to be tied to real purpose, real goals. Otherwise, it's not going to deliver any real value to the team or the business.
So in our school, Millsoft Academy, we once implemented a gamification structure in the sales division, and we were like, okay, guys,
Right.
whoever earns the most gets more money. So what ended up happening was that these sales reps would now start scratching each other's backs, bringing each other down, stealing leads from each other, and it just became an entire mess. How do you prevent something like that from happening?
Sure, that's a good one, and that's a really good question, and I think it's something to be cautious of when you're implementing gamification. I think first of all, when you're implementing it, know the reason you're trying to implement it. Is it just to create a competition to get employees to push a little bit more on a target or push a little bit more to reach a goal? And then when you've established the why behind implementing something that is going to be gamified, also making sure that there are clear criteria and clear set of rules of how you're supposed to engage with this. I think that was the mistake I made, similar to you. I was just kind of like, go for it, here's all the points, those that make the most points win. And I didn't necessarily think about the rules behind it, because if you think about a game, any game we play, there's rules to how you play that game, right? It's not, very few games are, the rule is there are no rules. And so being clear on what you are hoping that the gamification or the platform achieves, and then making sure that there is the right buy-in from your employees that is tied to goals, that is measurable for each person playing or participating in that. So that would be my 2 cents on gamification. And I think, just a point to add, AI is going to really help, or I think it's going to be quite exciting to see some of the gamification coming out on the AI side.
Okay, so speaking about AI and tech, let's go into hiring tech. So it's a well-known fact that South Africa, and not just South Africa, but the world in general, has a very big shortage of tech talent. We're all competing for that same pool
Yeah.
of very, very scarce talent. So, what's one thing that separates companies that successfully attract top tech talent from those that struggle?
I think a few years ago, I would say it would have been salary, right? But right now, it is not salary that's attracting your tech talent. I would say it is, and I'm going to repeat this quite a lot, it is culture, hands down, but not just culture. It is the authenticity of your culture. Because I think the tech talent out there, they know what they're used to, they know what they want and what they don't want in a company. They know what it looks like to have implied values, but not living those values from a company perspective. So we can say things like flexibility, well-being, openness, and transparency. But if that's not actually being lived and seen, an employee is not experiencing that, then it's just going to be words on a wall or words on a paper. If you want the best tech talent, look at what they're going after. They're going after flexibility in their role. They're going after a focus on well-being, a focus on balancing the workload. They don't want to burn out. Nobody wants to burn out. And I think we're shifting away from where it was cool to be working so hard that you eventually burn out to no, I think things like COVID, etc., helped us see that there's more to life, and bringing in balance, bringing in purpose, connecting what you're doing to something that's meaningful and purposeful. That's what I'm finding is actually even more than compensation. I'm seeing some tech talent saying they even accept lower salaries if a company is willing to offer them things like flexibility and a more balanced work life.
And the trend about remote working, I'm seeing more and more people opting for remote work. Is that what you're also seeing? Do you think remote is here to stay?
I think currently on a global scale, there's a bit of a debate, right? I'm seeing a shift where a lot of companies are now moving to hybrid. And I think that there is value in that for sure. But I think that companies that want to move solely away from remote are going to struggle, just because remote working showed us that it can be done. It also shifted the entire workforce and how we looked at work. and it allowed people to feel like they had a bit more flexibility. But it also led to things like burnout. And I think remote work is really amazing. And there's certain roles that support remote work, and particularly in the tech space as well. For a long time, developers, even before COVID, did work remotely. But I think that there is some truth to being connected in person to the people you work with. I don't know about you, but I loved remote work until I got proper cabin fever and really started missing my people at work. So I think that remote work is here to stay, but there is going to definitely be more of a shift for a hybrid model as we go into the future. That's my prediction. And kudos to the companies that are really, standing firm on the remote work. But with remote work, I think we need to also make sure we've got the right structure to support connectedness, to support each other and support the right culture. Things like communication tools, etc., really need to be programmed to help employees and develop employees rather than just acting as the tools that they are.
What are some of the, in addition to what you've just mentioned, what are some of the things that companies can do
Yeah.
to have a very healthy hybrid culture, more on the remote side of things? How can companies make sure that employees stay engaged when it comes to working remotely?
That's a really good question. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do to help your team stay connected, right? So there's things like having in-person team building exercise, or what I implemented in one of the startups that I was at was we did a weekly catch up on a Friday. Everyone came to the office, or everyone met, at a certain time at a local pub or coffee shop or whatever your fancy is, and we just connected over a beer, chatted, caught up on the things we didn't get to catch up on our Zoom cameras. So from a practical point of view, keep the connectedness going. I know for your introverts out there, sometimes you feel a bit forced to attend these events. It's for your own good. But with that being said, also have things that support your introverts as well, and people that don't want to just engage in person. So online games, I know we used to use Jackbox, which was really, really fun. And that helped employees that were based around the world, because that's another thing. We are remote, but we're not just remote with our people in South Africa or our people in Africa. We're working with people from different countries, from across globes and across time zones. So it is challenging to keep that connectedness across everybody, but having a key focus on it, being intentional about how you're connecting. It can't be fake. It can't be, we one type of culture, but we really want you guys to go and have fun having some beers. But tomorrow you're going to come back and be super stressed and unhappy as well. So if you're in a remote environment, your communication, how you're communicating, how open and transparent you are in that communication really matters, because we're not in the office. We don't get to read tones or facial expressions or voices. It's a lot of chatting on Slack or your other tools or over email, and things can get misread, things can get misinterpreted, and culture isn't often it's not as tangible sometimes in remote environments. So sorry, to answer your question, keep a focus on how you're communicating, how often and how transparent and open you are, and what are those connecting elements that you're adding to the remote.
Okay, interesting. So you've worked with startups that are experiencing hyper growth. How are the hiring processes different between a company that's busy scaling rapidly? They're getting more and more customers, so they really are just looking for as many people as possible. And when it's more stable, how are the two companies different when it comes to hiring processes?
That's a very good question. So when you're going through hypergrowth, the difference, I would say, is that you're trying to hire, if I could say, at speed. So you're trying to bring in people very quickly, but also making sure that they're aligned to your company values, that they're aligned to the company, or in some way a culture fit. And both take time. So when you're in a hyper growth state or going through a hyper growth model, being able to hire quickly but without compromising on quality is going to be key. And to be able to do that, you need the right interview structure, but you also need quick decision making and alignment on decision making. And when you're in a stable environment, or you're growing in a bit more stable way, you can you can bed down or go a bit deeper into things like a culture fit interview, or expanding the interview process out a little bit more, or drilling down a little bit harder on assessments and skills, etc. Because there's a bit more time that you have to play with. But I think in either instance, whether it's through hypergrowth or through a stable period, being intentional about who you hiring and not making rushed decisions is just absolutely key. It's something that you will pay for in the long run if you are not intentional about whether this person is actually a fit. And just another piece of advice: when you're going through hypergrowth, you're going to see a lot of people come through your interview process, and making sure that there is alignment on who they are, and not just looking at those that come from the traditional backgrounds that you're looking for. Add some diversity. Someone might have the right skill, just not from the same background that you were necessarily looking for. So be open into, can this person do the job? Do they fit our culture? Are they aligned to our values? Make a decision and let's go for it.
Speaking about bad hires, do you have any horror stories of bad hires that nearly killed off companies?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Um, okay, so I'm sure most of you, including yourself, would have heard that Home Energy, unfortunately, it is going through a company business rescue phase. So there was a lot that Home did right, but there was also a lot of challenges that it experienced. And I think one of the challenges was hiring. We were going through hypergrowth, and just hiring because we really needed the skill in, without really assessing whether the people were aligned. So I wouldn't say that the bad hire necessarily caused the demise of the company. I think that was a culmination of various different things. But let's just say we hired someone, they came in, and on a company-wide meeting, online meeting with about 300 staff members on the call, they made a very inappropriate racial joke. And yeah, it did not go down well, and yeah, it was a huge mess. Obviously HR had to deal with that mess in the best way possible, but it was also a learning, because I think, here we are, we just went balls to the wall hiring, and we didn't actually stop to see, how is this actually affecting us as a company, as a brand. And it could have had major consequences had it got out of that meeting. It could have had major consequences for the business brand.
Wow. How can companies prevent bad hiring? Is it I want to share a story, and please just help me out how I could have prevented this. So there was a time
Yeah.
when we were looking for an assistant person to just help with admin, and we brought in the first person that we could find that had some admin experience. But once they got into the business, it was just a nightmare from day one. The way they interacted with students, the way they interacted with other stakeholders within the business, and eventually they committed fraud, and we had to chase them out because of that fraud.
Oh,
How can companies prevent things from going that far? Do you believe in hire fast, fire faster?
I think that it's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. I think when you're hiring someone with the best intention, right? And it's hard to. You can use all the psychometric evaluations in the world, but it's really difficult to pick some of those things up on initial interviews. I know lots of people that aced 7 rounds of interviews, but only lasted a month in a company because they were just not a great fit. And I think
Wow.
what I'm seeing a shift towards of how we can avoid situations like that is having some sort of assessment that's maybe a day long or maybe a week long. I'm seeing some companies now even offering to pay candidates, for their time to come in for a day or come in for a week. See how they're engaging with the people that they're supposed to be working with. Put them in some real life scenarios. We have something called competency based interviews where you're asking competency based questions, and use those interviews to throw some real life situations at them. If you were in this situation, tell me about how you handled it. If this happened, how would you handle it? Something that they can't just chat GPT and answer to and come in prepared, but they'd have to think on their feet in the interview. And I'm really loving the shift towards having an in day interview. So having someone come in for the whole day, interacting with your team, having conversations, but also being involved in the work that they're meant to be doing. And that's a good way of evaluating how are they actually engaging with the team members. And I get it. Obviously, there is room for people's nerves, and not everyone's going to act the same. But it could give us some indication of what to expect. When it comes to hiring and firing quickly, I would also say, just like I mentioned, fractional is great. Bring someone in on a contract. I know it's not the best. I know that from an employee perspective, employees feel like it's unstable. But bring someone in on a contract basis. Make it a 1 month or a 3 month contract, or use the probation period as a contract period. And if truly we're happy, then we will extend the contract to a full-time role. I think there's no harm in doing that. And that safeguards companies a little bit from situations like that.
Wow, awesome. Awesome. So, still on tech, AI is the big thing now. It's the big thing in every industry, and it's
Yes,
completely transforming recruitment.
yes.
What would you say are some of the practical applications of AI that you've found?
This is a topic that excites me. I'm a bit of a techie, or an HR techie. I love tech stuff, and I love what AI can do. And more than just recruitment, I'm seeing AI transforming HR. And let's be honest, I think HR needed a transformation. I think we've been using 20 to 50-year-old practices in today's world. But from a recruitment perspective, I love the practical application of AI. It's great for booking interviews, taking care of your calendar in some sort of way, taking a bit of the admin or repetitive tasks. It's great at handling that on the recruitment basis. Also helping sort through CVs, not necessarily assessing candidates or assessing CVs, because I think there's still a lot of work to be done there on the AI side, but being able to put the right candidates into the right categories. I love the tool for that. But what I'm most excited about in the AI HR space is how AI can transform your performance management and people operations. I think, imagine living in a world where performance management, and I really hate that term, performance management. I think it gives lots of people anxiety. But imagine AI being able to analyze, your employees. What areas are they strong at? What areas do they need a little bit more development in? And then personalizing growth paths for employees so that there's no such thing as an underperformer. Everyone, I think AI has the ability to really help in those areas and take something that has become really just a checkbox exercise once or twice a year, where you find all managers running to suddenly get performance reviews done, and then employees feeling like that wasn't even done properly, and now I didn't get the increase that I want, and nobody sees me. I think AI has so much value to transform that space, and we're already seeing it in the industry. We're already seeing tools like skill cycle, etc., using AI to analyze employee behavior and suggest areas where they can develop so that they become more driven, and feel like they're developing and growing in the company.
Hmm. Interesting.
We're also seeing
Interesting.
AI in the people ops space. Yeah, transforming HR all over. So yeah, loving it.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. So we were talking about AI and technology and all these things, and how difficult it is for companies to hire tech talent, I can imagine it's equally difficult to retain that talent once it's in the business. How can companies make sure that this top performing talent that comes in stays?
Good question. Isn't that the question of the century, right? In this competitive market, everybody wants the top talent. And I think I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again. Focus on your culture, focus on having an authentic culture, one that really encourages open, transparent communication, one where people can feel like they can bring their whole self to work, their whole personality to work. And I know some of us out there have some crazy personalities, and we're not asking we're not asking for all of it, but we certainly don't want to be, or candidates, especially your tech candidates, they don't want to be in environments where they feel a little bit restricted, where everything is watched and measured, and there's no flexibility. If COVID's taught us anything, it is be authentic as a company, be vulnerable as leaders. Let's create an environment where mistakes are truly okay. I think when people feel supported and they feel like a company is willing to invest in their growth and development, and that's looking like helping them learn and develop in their skills, but also giving them some personal development opportunities. Those kinds of things I'm finding is really what helps retain top talent. I'm even seeing, an increase on things like paternity leave for dads, and that's something that never existed before. And those are huge sell points for anyone starting out a family. And those are just little ways in which you can do it. But focus on flexibility, focus on well-being, and let your employees feel like you really care about them. It's not all about making your employees feel, tiptoeing around their needs. But if you're investing in your employees and they feel like they're growing and that they're part of a mission, they're part of something bigger, and that they're aligned to something with purpose, that's what's going to keep them over salary. I've seen lots of cases, because I've recruited primarily in the tech space. And I've seen lots of cases where people were happy to accept a lower salary simply because the culture was there to support their well-being. And I think that's really what's going to ultimately keep your people. Because you can have all the team buildings and all the tennis ping pong tables at the office and beers on a Friday, but if they're not feeling supported, and they're not feeling like they're genuinely cared for, or that there's some flexibility in what they do and there's purpose in what they do, none of that's going to keep them. So yeah, I would say keep a focus on authenticity as a business and as a culture.
Yeah, you've really, really nailed it there. You've really, really nailed it. A lot of companies complain, especially with their junior developers, to say, oh, we're not really keen on hiring interns because once they get some experience, 6 months, 1 year, they are out. And we've invested all this time and all this money into them. So we are scared. So, how can companies actually pick up pick it up early that, oh, there must be a problem amongst our junior talent? How can they pick it up early before they jump ship?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think if you're a company and you're experiencing your junior devs, or your juniors leaving, one point that I would say, don't overlook exit interviews. Exit interviews are gold, because you can firstly understand, even though someone's leaving, let's try and understand why they're leaving so that more people don't leave, right? And I think something that I see, and I've got firsthand experience with this as well. Bringing in interns and bringing in, or having junior staff, junior developers, or any kind of junior employee, they need support. They need to be nurtured as well. Yes, we can throw them in the deep end, and we want to do that to help them grow their skill set, get a bit of a tough skin. But we're not doing that to see whether they can make or break it. And I think the minute that our younger people don't feel supported or don't feel like they've got enough room or enough investment in them to grow, if they can't see any future opportunities for them within the company, then those are grounds for them to leave. I mean, I saw it. It's great to bring in young people, and we did it. We did it really well at Home Energy. But they also have to be a very intentional move towards mentoring those young people because they need it. I remember when I was starting out as a junior, it felt to me like going from preschool to big school, if I can call it. You're nervous, you're young, you don't know a lot, you have some experience, and you're looking to the older people or the people a bit more experienced in your organization to hold your hand a little bit, to guide you a little bit. That's not a weakness. They need that. And when young people or juniors can feel or see the investment in them, that they can see that there's purpose to me being here. I'm part of a bigger picture. I'm contributing to a larger goal, and there's a future path for me in this company. That's going to be motivation for them to stay as well. Let's not, bring in young people and expect the world out of them either. Because I also saw that happen. We just brought them in and we're like, no, let them sink or swim. And most of them sank, and it wasn't on them. It wasn't on the employee that they sank. It was on us because we didn't support them well enough to help them thrive. So if you're gonna bring in juniors, and I encourage you to bring in juniors, that's basically your workforce of the future. So if you're going to be investing in your culture, let's just create a culture all around that we're going to invest in our people, whether they're junior, whether they're senior. And when it's juniors, let's put a little bit more effort in guiding, in mentoring, in holding their hand, because they're young now and they might need a bit more extra attention now, but they're not going to need that forever. And you set the right foundation for them, and you're going to see them soar in your organization. You won't be losing them if they feel invested in.
What about a company that they're listening to this now and they're realizing, oh my goodness, our culture is totally messed up. We did it absolute wrong way. How do they start to reshape it without upsetting the balance of things?
I love that question. And here's the good news. It's never too late to fix it, and it's never too late to want to shift the culture. Here's the thing about culture, right? Businesses or people think that culture comes after you've got the company. Like, I built a company, I've got about 5, 10, 20 employees. Ooh, let's focus on culture now because I'm seeing people are not so happy or things. That's not how culture works. Culture is either intentional or unintentional, but it is there from day one. And it starts. So if you're not intentional about setting the culture from day one, it's not too late. And here's a pro tip or a top tip for anyone wanting to fix their culture. Just start with being yourself as a company. Be authentic as a company. If you have values, which most companies do, let's go in, let's look at those values. Are they still relevant till today? Cool. How do we live those values as leaders of the company, as business owners? How are we embodying and showing up, living those values that we've put forward? So if we're saying trust and integrity and all these beautiful words, how is that being shown? And if it's not showing, if you're saying things like open communication, but it's still taking place in silos and people still don't know what's happening, let's come in, let's diagnose where the issue is, and let's make a culture of open communication. The great thing about culture is that it can be fixed. I would say the challenge is when it's gone too far, right? So when you've had a culture for so long, your employees have almost don't trust what you're going to say anymore. So there it's going to take a little bit more time to build that trust. But the good news is, if you show in any stage, whether you're day 1, day 100, 10 years down the line, if you show your employees that you are real. You are there to support them, and you want to create the right culture, and they will buy into that. Even if it's been a crap culture for a few years, if you're willing to change it, if you're willing to recognize, hey, we need a little bit of a shift here, and work at that, and your employees can see that you're working at that in an authentic way. So not just, again, not just about throwing a dinner party or beers on a Friday or ping pong tables, but you still have you still addressing your employees in a critical way, or there isn't any growth or development, or you're expecting so much of them. None of the fluff is going to work. So, let it be real, let it be authentic, and be vulnerable with your people. When you're vulnerable as a leader, you create the space for your people to be themselves, and that fosters a culture of collaboration and innovation. We want to see leaders vulnerable. We want to see leaders saying, I made a mistake. I don't have all the answers. Can you guys help me? And I think that's what's going to really help cultures that feel like they're too far gone to fix it.
When leaders become vulnerable and they show weakness, or they're like, okay, hey guys, I messed up. Sorry, I shouldn't have hired that person, or I shouldn't have taken on this client. Doesn't it make the team lose confidence in the leader to say, ah, look at him, he's messing up?
I mean, that is one way of looking at it, right? But let's be honest. Life, is there any of us that don't make mistakes? Is there any of us that's perfect? No. Life isn't about being perfect. And yes, it's not easy as a leader to admit to mistakes. It's not easy as a leader to admit, or be vulnerable and say, hey guys, I messed up, or I made a bad decision. And there are going to be the employees that might lose confidence in your abilities. But if you admit the mistakes, but show how you're going to rectify it, how you're going to do it differently this time, and you get their input. Don't make the decisions by yourself. Let's open it up to your people. Let's open it up to them to say, help me. I don't have all the answers. Yes, some of us want our leaders to have all the answers. And for the most part, they do. But at the same time, they're also human. They're also feeling things like imposter syndrome. They're also experiencing challenges that might be very new to them, and asking them to keep up a brave face and to stay confident even when they're not, then we ourselves are being a little bit inauthentic, if I could say, because we want, as employees, want that same level of acknowledgement when we've messed up, right? We want to be able to be in an environment where we can say, hey, I need help. And so let's show the same grace to our leaders. And if you're feeling like, listen, if your leaders are making mistakes and they're not rectifying it, and it's mistake after mistake, by all means, I wouldn't have much confidence in it either. But if they're making mistakes, they're admitting it, and they're asking for help, then let's give them a chance.
Wow, incredible, incredible. Let's talk about the junior for now, because
Yeah.
juniors, they're looking at the job market and it's extremely bad. There are no jobs. I mean, especially look at youth unemployment in Africa in general. It's extremely high. So what can a young junior person do to make themselves stand out in a job search?
That is a really good question. I think we're fortunate to be living in a time. We're fortunate to be living in a time where information is more available to us than ever before. We're living in a time where AI and ChatGPT have, really made how we access learning, how we access knowledge a lot easier. So gone are the days of just Googling now. I'm seeing a lot coming, free courses, free learning development. So I would say to our youth, grab all opportunity, all free opportunities that you can to learn and upskill. It doesn't have to be just within the areas that you're interested in. Let's look at future trends coming in the tech space. Let's look at where's the world shifting towards, and let's start upskilling, reading, knowing a bit more, digging into those areas, become a bit of, have a voice, go onto your LinkedIn, write your thoughts, post it out to the world. I know it's scary. I know it is, but that will show the world whether they're looking for the right skill or the right talent, or even just a junior with some sort of knowledge in an area that could stand out, that this person took the time to read an article and they have some know-how. I think that that is amazing. It also shows that you're using all all resources that you have available to be better, or to upskill, or to grow, or to learn. You're not just sitting back and waiting for the opportunities to come. You running after it. And go attend events, attend dev days that you're invited to, or university days that are open fairs. Connect, network. I know for introverts that's like probably the worst thing for them to do, but there's a lot of online meetups that take place. There's a lot of online webinars and great podcasts that you could listen to and be a part of, or comment on, to get your name out there, to be more visible. So my advice would be connect, network, and take full advantage of all free learning materials and ways to upskill yourself. I know, thankfully, we've got, not everyone has a paid ChatGPT, but it's great for, the free version is great for just learning any topic. I mean, I'm learning, things that are way out of my skill set or knowledge base. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just, the world is we haven't had this much opportunity ever. So let's just keep taking advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Okay, and also let's talk about um, experience, because one of the things that these junior level roles are requiring more and more now is experience. And
Yeah,
that entire dilemma of how do I get the experience if I don't get the job, and all these things. I want to ask, in terms of unpaid internships, do you
yeah.
think they are fair? What are the pros and cons, and what's your honest take on unpaid internships?
Okay, that's a good question. I think if I think an unpaid internship is fair only if the person that the intern that you're bringing in isn't going to be there for a year. So it's not a year long unpaid internship. It's a short month, 2 week, at most 2 month work experience, like a shadowing type of internship, where you come in, if you're a dev, or you want to be a dev, or whatever profession you're looking to get into, you come in, you can shadow someone that's the professional or more senior in that area, and get involved. By all means, if I was an intern, I would jump at that opportunity, and because I want the experience. But don't go for any internship that's longer than 3 months that isn't paid for. And I think that internships that use in an internship as a way to just bring in young employees, but give them the same workload as a normal skilled employee, is also unfair, paid or not. And I think I've seen that happen as well. So you need experience. So if it is an unpaid one and it's going to get you that experience in the short term, grab it, go for it. It's better than not doing anything or getting no experience. But if it is an internship where you're going to be involved in some real work, there's going to be real workload to carry, and it's not paid, I would stay away from it, because those environments do tend to take advantage of interns and do tend to put a lot of pressure for delivery, but there isn't any compensation or benefit, except the benefit of experience. Like, that's great to have the benefit of experience, but experience doesn't pay my studies, or doesn't pay for food. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Wow, well said. Well said. Thank you so much for that. So, about the culture coach, what is one of the most rewarding aspects of your work? And what's one misconception about building a strong company culture that you frequently encounter?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'd say, hands down, the most rewarding part of my job is seeing leaders invest in their employees and see the return of investing in your employees, because we're not asking for an investment just because we want you to grow us. Where when you invest in your employees, you will see a happier workforce, and you will see a more motivated workforce, and therefore you will see business objectives being met. And I love seeing that. I love seeing business owners be like, oh wow, right, okay, this is really making a difference. But I also love seeing employees find purpose and meaning and worth in what they do. Showing up to work, whether it's a challenging environment or not, showing up to work ready to take on those challenges. I live for that. I live for employees waking up and wanting to go into work because they genuinely feel part of something important. They feel part of a bigger mission, and they themselves see themselves as valued and something to contribute, meaning to contribute. That I want that for everyone. I don't want there to be anyone underperforming, because every person has a strength, every person has worth, and we just got to unlock that.
Hmm.
And sorry, to
And
answer the second part of your
mhm.
question, the biggest misconception I think I've seen about culture is that if we just bring in some fluff, or if we just bring in a few more beer Fridays, or games days, or team builds, that's going to fix a toxic culture, or a culture that isn't, that doesn't have the right traits, and that's not going to fix it. There isn't a quick fix to it. I think culture isn't something that you look at only when you've established your business. Culture is foundational to business success. So it's not something that should be an afterthought. It's something that needs to be intentionally thought of from the day you start your company, because you can have an intentional culture, but you also have tacit culture. And tacit culture is, the personality of your CEO and his exec team, or her exec team, that becomes the culture, without saying it and without knowing it unconsciously. How you show up and in what personality or presence of mind or mood you show up, or how you speak to your staff, sets the culture of the organization. So yeah, it isn't something that is a quick fix, and it isn't just adding some of the nice to haves on top of a toxic culture won't sort out the culture.
Wow, what an amazing answer that is. Oh, okay. So looking ahead, what are some of the emerging trends in HR and talent acquisitions that companies need to be looking out for the next 2 to 3 years?
I know I mentioned it before. If you're not looking at, investing in your staff and using AI to your advantage as a business, I feel like you're gonna miss out. I feel like you're gonna lose out there. I think the trends that are coming in is using AI to help streamline onboarding, help streamline your people operations, taking the repetitiveness out of certain tasks, which is amazing, and not just in AI. In HR across the board, but also be able and be willing to embrace AI and what it's coming with. Yes, there's a lot of things to be aware of when it comes to AI, but don't completely shy away from it altogether or dig your head in the sand, because you're gonna miss out. So I would say the trend that I'm really seeing is AI to transform areas like performance management that desperately need the transformation. Um, AI to personalize employee experiences. We spend so much of our time at work. We're so invested in wanting to do well, and be successful people. And so personalizing that journey, one size fits all doesn't work anymore. I'm not sure it ever did. Maybe there was a time it did, but it certainly doesn't work now. We're different. We're got Gen Z and Gen X and this and all the alphabets, and each person, each gen whatever, has their own needs, their own things that drive them. And so embrace the trend of AI that's coming. I feel like it's there to help us make things better for the most part.
Wow, incredible, incredible. Kamini, thank you so much. It's been an amazing pleasure. I'm going to ask you two last questions. So the
Sure.
first question is coming from the previous guest. His name is Cameron Coots from Metavolve. And his question to you, let me just open it up quickly. There we go. So his question to you, um, if you had to step if you had to stop now and start from scratch, how would you approach the restart?
Wow, that is a great question. Um, if I stopped right now, and I think that I'm fortunate in that the culture coach is my sort of new baby that I've taken on or launched with. And what I'm doing now is all companies say we've got values and we've got a mission and we've got a purpose and we've got values. But now that I've started, I am looking at what are my values and are they actually aligned to what I want to be doing as my purpose for Kamini, right? And so that, and am I living those values? And my values for the culture coach is everybody has worth, and I'll sing it again, every person has something to offer, every person has strength, and every person has worth. And so how am I, as a business owner or a business leader or a founder, living that value and living those values? Am I authentic? Am I showing those values? And how can I set a culture that from the onset, it is clear that this is who we are as a company? This is what we believe in. So that would be my answer in a nutshell.
Excellent. And what would be your question to the next guest?
Oh, um, that is a very good question. What would you How would you look at, if you're a business owner and starting out or you're running your company now, how would you look, or how do you look at employee development or people development? What does that look like? And are you happy with that? Or do you want to transform that or enhance that in some way?
Excellent. Excellent. I know who he is. I think he's gonna have a great answer.
Oh, yay! I wish you could tell me, but awesome. I'll stay tuned to see who our mystery guest is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible pleasure. I've learned a lot. There's so much that I'm going to take out of this and apply straight into my business. And I'm sure anyone who's listening to this, any founder or any HR professional, will get a lot of value out of it. So, how can people reach out to you?
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I hope that whoever listens to this finds value in it. And I'm also open to just having a chat, and learning more ideas. So please feel free to contact me. You can reach me at theculturecoach.co.za. That's my website. DM me, slide into those DMs on LinkedIn, because that's my social media of today. And yeah, I'm down for any kind of chat. This topic excites me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening or for watching. I hope you got some value. I'm pretty sure you learned a lot in this episode. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Always remember the truth shall always set you free. And we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.